Welcome to the Scotsman Rugby Show. The tries keep on coming and we have action from the Premiership and National League to bring you this week. Glasgow and Edinburgh claimed a great double in the Rabo Direct at the weekend, but what does this week hold for them? And in this edition we also have an interview with SRU President Alan Lawson on Murrayfield life after Gordon Mackay, while Jim Renwick steps into the Legends spot to tell us about his international career and the highs and the lows. But as usual, let's kick off with some of the best of the weekend's club rugby.
It was nip and tuck up to the interval at Golden Acre, with Heriot just leading Dundee at the break. Alan Brown scored one of Dundee's tries, diving over in the corner, while up the other end Heriot's got on the score sheet with one of the best tries of the game, Fraser Brown getting the touchdown for the Nails. But in the second half, Heriot's pulled away to defend the Bill McLaren Shield, which they won last week at Melrose. This break by Mike Penn was finished off by Mark Teague. The bonus point win by 40 points to 25 included a try towards the end from captain Graham Wilson.
They deserved a victory for the way they played the game over the 80. We didn't play for 80 minutes, and we're going to have to start to do that. And we've got Curry coming up next week, and if we don't do that against a side who can really hurt you, it's going to be a tough week. But we're not that far away.
We've come out with a massive victory for us because we beat Melrose last week, and I think the first half was pretty poor despite us scoring 3 tries, so there was a huge bit of concern, but that's us beating 2 of the top 4 from last season, so it's a huge relief because the boys were pretty down at the start of the season. They've had to work hard, but that's a huge lift for them to beat Melrose and then Dundee, who were top 2 last year. Delighted.
Ayr stay at the top of the table with a 4th win out of 4 against Stirling County, while Gala got a victory at Aberdeen Grammar for the first time in 61 years, thanks to a last-minute dropkick from Lee Miller. There were also away wins for Curry and Melrose. Into the National League, and the Border Derby went the way of hosts Kelso, who beat Jedforest 20 points to 12. The try of the game was this one from captain Richard Minto. It was started off in their own half by William Massey, who signed for Kelso this season from Tynedale. Ex-Hawick flanker Michael Robertson was up there in support, and there was Richard Minto to run in under the posts. Both teams scored 2 tries on Saturday, and this one from Jed centre Robert Hogg was one which delighted his team and supporters, Hogg carving through the Kelso defence to get his first try of the season. So the points went to Kelso. Elsewhere, Biggar won at home against Stuart's Melville thanks to a late try from Craig Russell. Selkirk remain unbeaten with a 4th win at Hillhead Jordan Hill, while Watsonians and Glasgow Hawks both claimed 5-point victories. We thought we'd end the roundup this week with a dip into East League Division 2. Nearly 800 people turned up at Mansfield Park for a derby between Hawick Harlequins and Hawick Linden. Greg Cunningham getting the first try for Linden, while in the second half, this break by replacement scrum half Craig Russell caused big problems for the Quins, and this one-handed pass out to fullback Greg Thompson gave Linden the win, 18-6.
Glasgow Warriors got their season off and running at the weekend with a win down in Swansea over the reigning champions, the Ospreys, while Edinburgh chased the new Zebra out of Murrayfield with a 5-try thumping. The Scarlets went back to the top, and there were also wins for Cardiff, Leinster and Ulster. The question this week is whether the Scots can keep it going. Glasgow will try again to claim a first win at Scotstoun in what will be a battle with Connaught, and Scarlets host the Ospreys, while Ulster's match away to Zebra has been postponed following the death of young Ulster centre Nevin Spence at the weekend. Edinburgh head to Dublin to face a Leinster team back to their full complement of internationalists on Saturday, while Cardiff welcome Treviso and the Dragons head to Munster. Now we turn our attention to the Blazers of Scottish Rugby. Former Scotland scrum half Alan Lawson took over as SRU President in the summer from Ian McLaughlin. Next week he tells us how club rugby has to change to grow. But we kick off the first of our 2-part interview with the new president telling us how life has changed at Murrayfield and why he stood for office.
Well, firstly, Ian McLaughlin sort of grabbed me after one of the internationals and suggested it would maybe be a good idea as a rugby player rather than as a rugby administrator to get involved in the game. And obviously I had to get some sponsorship from clubs, and 12 clubs sponsored me, thank you very much. And I had a year as vice president last year, just learning the ropes, so to speak. And there's a lot of involvement in the union. I mean, it is an organisation, it is a business, and it also contains all the the clubs, the grassroots, all the volunteers. So I've really enjoyed it so far.
Has it opened your eyes then maybe to elements of rugby and Scottish rugby that you weren't aware of before?
I think I had a pretty good understanding of how difficult it is to run a sporting organisation where you have professional people, be it players, be it administrators, and then this swathe of volunteers who give of their time freely. And one of the things that is just so uplifting is to go to the grassroots clubs and meet these fantastic people who inspire youngsters to play the game and keep our game alive.
What are the big challenges at the moment for Scottish rugby?
Well, you can't walk away, you just need to look at the economy and understand finance is an issue for everyone, whether it's refurbishing, whether it's funding the activities, or whether it's looking to the future and seeing the path forward, because standing still isn't an option for any club, for any organisation. And you look, in the past I've often felt that Scotland did well when other teams were rebuilding, but the facts of life now, everyone is getting better, and the more finance we've seen from the Olympics, that if the right funding is given, then you can see progress being made and success coming through. And unfortunately, we are in a professional era, and yet we have this enormous underbelly. The base of our club game is an amateur game, and that's a difficult challenge. There are a lot of tensions there. There are a lot of financial issues there. But we're in a good place as a union. I'm very, very encouraged at what's been happening over the last year. The new team really grabbed things, much more forward-looking, much more customer-orientated, much more rugby-friendly. And rugby is the word. It is a business, but rugby is at the heart of what we're trying to do.
So how do you marry the stresses and the tensions that come from the international game and the professional game, as you say, where everyone else around the world is improving at quite a rate, with the responsibilities to the club game?
Well, I think that is where there is a difficulty, and clearly the more successful we are at the top of the tree in the programme, the more funds we can release. Because clearly last year with Edinburgh doing so well in the Heineken and Glasgow doing well in the quarterfinal, the extra funds that came from that were quite considerable. We have a debt situation, we have a debt reduction programme. We're certainly on top of that compared to where we were a few years ago. But it's difficult because obviously everywhere you look, people are looking for funds. Whether it's the underage teams, the women's game, it's everywhere there are demands, and you're competing for scarce resources at the end of the day, and that's a challenge.
That was Alan Lawson, not a blazer in sight. More from him next week. Now, one of the most dazzling of Scotland's stars was undoubtedly Jim Renwick. This week he looks back on his career and tells us who dazzled him and what matches stood out in a fantastic international career.
First cap for Scotland was 1972 versus France, and I remember a lot of things about the game, especially the build-up to the game. Going to the game in the bus, the late Gordon Brown sat down beside us and tried to keep us calm. And I remember the dressing room before going out into the Murrayfield and running down the tunnel. I think anybody that pulls the blue jersey on and runs down that tunnel, it's something special, and it was for me. And to score and get a win over France on your first game was something special as well. And I looked up the programme the other week, and people like Spangaro and Doga, so it shows you a long time ago it was. Aye, my boyhood hero would have to be a Hawick man, of course. My dad used to take us to all the sevens and the borders, and there was a man played for Hawick then called George Stevenson. Stevie was his nickname, and he was always exciting to watch. Maybe he made the odd mistake or two, but he made up for it in other ways, and always a crowd pleaser. My favourite game for Scotland was obviously your first cap, is very important, but looking back, I suppose, to beat Wales down there in 1982, I think it was, when we didn't win for a while. It's always difficult to win away from home for Scotland, and it was a pleasure to go down there and win in style. My toughest opponent would be anybody in a number 12 jersey, but I think in my day he had the little jinky guys like Gerald Davis, and he had the big straight guys, so I would rather mark a big straight guy as a little jinky boy. But there was a guy who played for South Africa called Danny Herbert, and he was a big boy and he could do both, and he was always a bit of a handful. That's a tough one, and I've seen plenty before me and during my time as well, and since then there's been some fantastic players. But in terms of attacking wise and playing with your heart on your sleeve, I would have to pick Andy Irvine, because not just was he doing it then in the 70s, he's still doing it now, manager of the Lions. So he's been an active figure in Scottish rugby for a long time, both on and off the pitch.
Looking ahead now to this weekend, can Melrose stop the runaway train of Ayr in the Premiership's match of the day, with Dundee and Curry waiting at Mayfield to pick up on any slip-ups? Can Heriots keep their revival going, or will Accies finally get over that winning line in the big capital match? In the National League, the big game is at Philip Hoch, where unbeaten sides Selkirk and Glasgow Hawks go head-to-head. The Chasers, Hillhead, Jordan Hill and Watsonians meet at Hughenden, and Jedforest, Hawick and Stumel could all do to turn home games into points. Well, that's it from another Scotsman Rugby show. Next week we'll turn the spotlight on the schools rugby and hopefully bring you more cracking club tries.